Weekly podcast, Tom. I almost went with the morning scoop, but I did not, and I went with the Buckeye Weekly podcast. Thank you all for joining us. We are live of Big Ten Media Days. Today featured the Nebraska Cornhuskers, the Illinois Fighting Illini, the Michigan Wolverines, the Maryland Terrapins, which are a turtle, Tom.
Big if true.
The Northwestern Wildcats, also a turtle. And Penn State, I believe that was all 7. So
I don't think you said Minnesota.
Minnesota, the Gophers, which not a turtle.
Not a turtle, as far as I understand.
Right, but they do live underground like turtles do. Yes, that is true. So, yeah, we were here today. First of all, it's good to finally be back, like, indoors doing stuff like this because it's been a while since we've been able to do it. Stuff is still a little spaced out, which is actually kind of nice. You got some elbow room, and here out on the field of Lucas Oil where everything was spread out, and I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah, the first thing I noticed when I came in was Big Ten signage everywhere. Big Ten logos in the end zones, Big Ten logos on the field. It was like, well, they didn't do this for last December, but they did it today. That's good. I mean,
they made up.
Nature is healing.
Yes, it sure is. It's everywhere. It's even on the goalposts for whatever reason. It's on the field. It's almost as if Big Ten is welcome here.
Almost. And, I guess they can technically open the roof of this building, but I always look up at the goalposts and see the orange flags in the top. I'm like, I don't think wind's going to be a concern today.
No, it was a good day today. Not too hot, not too cold. And so today was day one of the Big Ten Media Days. Is always interesting because that's when the commissioner talks. And this was the first time Commissioner Kevin Warren talked publicly since, maybe 2019 he may have done this when Jim Delaney introduced him?
Yeah, he talked at one of these 2 years ago in Chicago, and then I don't think he ever did any kind of like press availability other than
and plenty of people
friendly
asked.
press. Yeah.
So that was interesting I say interesting. It was something to be able to talk to him or ask questions, or yes, questions were asked, but there were no questions necessarily answered.
Yeah.
And some of them were good questions about Big Ten expansion, because he was asked about the report of the SEC going after Texas and Oklahoma.
Correct.
And he was like, he said a bunch of words, and eventually, I think what it came down to, what the gist that I took from it is, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And it's like, well, no, you shouldn't be looking to see what happens. You should be one of the people making things happen.
You are literally one of the only people in this entire building who is not sort of just a passive observer in this process. It's a little, what is he going to say, I guess, but it seems like there should be an answer there. Like, we will continue to evaluate things from our league's perspective and do what is best for our members and yada yada yada. But you didn't come away from Thursday with the idea that the Big Ten is in great shape. Like there is a steady hand on the tiller. Everything's going to be fine. They are gonna, if the SEC adds Texas and Oklahoma, the Big Ten's gonna have an answer. It is gonna be fine. It is gonna be fine, and nothing's gonna change.
You know what that answer is? Good old rock. Trusty rock.
Nothing beats rock, is my understanding.
Nothing beats rock. And so that was disappointing, maybe bordering on concerning. Now, he did say they would looking into expansion, and that's going to be one of Barry Alvarez's duties as a new executive honcho here in the Big Ten. So that will be one of the things he's tasked with. But we could talk about this in another show. But if you lose Texas and Oklahoma, I don't know where else the Big Ten goes that even comes close to that outside of Notre Dame.
Right, and Notre Dame is now in a spot with the college football playoff expansion where they essentially have a free ticket in if they just go 11-1 every year. So they don't really, they can't be one of the top 4 seeds, but they can get into the college football playoff functionally anytime they're 11-1. So is that, and and then you get a home game if you're 11-1 probably, so that really wouldn't be such a bad deal. Like Notre Dame, I think everyone immediately kind of went, LOL Notre Dame, and then it was like the more you thought about it, it was like actually I don't know that this is such a bad deal for them. So yeah, I'm starting to wonder with some of these teams in bigger conferences that are not as strong, or the conferences that have crappy TV deals. If you're a big enough brand, are there going to be more teams going independent rather than teams going from independent to, that's a I don't know, is USC at that point at some point, or you can't do that and be you can do that and be BYU and be kind of irrelevant. But if you were a big enough school, I mean that was kind of a talking point with the Ohio State, and Ohio State is probably not going to go independent, but for any number of off-field reasons involving the Big Ten academic consortium and all that kind of stuff. But I do wonder if a USC or Florida State, if Florida State can't get in. I mean, the ACC has a bad TV deal, and I don't know if people understand how bad the ACC TV deal is, but it's bad, and it's locked in through 2035, I believe. So
those teams are pretty much off limits. Like you can't even talk to them about it because they can't give up that money.
Yeah.
No, it would just so it's almost like you're stuck with going to the AAC or the Big 12, or I've suggested UCF, which isn't great, but it gets you in Florida and it's a big school, but does it really do anything for you? No, not really. And so you get to the point of, well, I guess we got to do something,
and that's how you get Rutgers. If you want Rutgers, exactly. That's how you get Rutgers.
So maybe the best thing is to do nothing until all of this comes to a head and one conference goes down, and then you just pick up, the freebies. That's when you go get Kansas or something like that. We'll see. I think the first big thing that came from this, outside of the Kevin Warren stuff, was when Jim Harbaugh was talking, and he was asked by Bill Rabinowitz of the Dispatch, "Hey man, what's it going to take for you to beat Ohio State? What's it going to take for you to win the Big Ten, beat Michigan State, and do those things?" And he said some things, and then at the end he said, "We're going to do it or die trying." And then I think everybody in here tweeted that out, and then we're hit with responses of all kinds of gifs of people pouring out 40s for him, or caskets being laid out and stuff like that. So I think that was an interesting moment today. I was optimistic. I liked his energy today, and we've talked about how the energy is down. I think he's been energized by the new coaching staff and the younger guys coming in, and just the fact that there's change here, which they needed. So I thought I wasn't with him on the breakout. You were.
Yep.
I was okay with what he said up here. I didn't have any eye rolling moments. How was he?
Yeah, he was. We had him for an hour at a podium. We streamed that whole thing on YouTube, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. If you want to go back and listen to that, I will apologize for the audio quality on that. They have an entire football stadium here, and they put these sound stages literally like not even 5 yards apart. So you have Muhammad Ibrahim from the Minnesota running back answering questions right next to Jim Harbaugh, so you get this nice mixture of two answers at once.
And they only have speakers on one side of the table, so if you're on the wrong side.
Yes, so there were some issues out of our control today, but there was it was. He said the same thing. He said, "Get there, or we're gonna do it, or we're gonna die trying." He said the same thing again. And he told it in the context of a story with his daughter. They were out hiking in California, and they hiked up a mountain, and they got partway up, and then they were running out of water, and his wife was like, "Hey, should we turn around and go back?" He asked his daughter, "What do you want to do?" And she said, "We got to get to the top. We got to get to the top. That's what you got to do. You got to get to the top." And he said, "That's what we got to do. We got to get to the apex." So that means you're beating Michigan State, you're beating Ohio State, you're getting to the Big Ten championship game and winning the Big Ten championship game. Like, they want to be champions, that's what it takes. And it is a different vibe off of him this year. No more coming in the Michigan ball cap, and no more khakis. He was just in a regular old suit today with a regular old tie and nothing. He looked like every other coach, basically.
I was going to say, he seemed like a normal coach.
Yeah, he was not doing the wacky Jim Harbaugh trying to get attention. He was just Jim Harbaugh, football coach, which was, that was a little odd to me. Like, that jumped out to me as he's walking up on stage. I'm like, where are the khakis? Where's the hat?
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy? And
He looks good.
yeah, and he you can tell there's a vibe about him. That, I mean, you mentioned being a little more energized, and I think he probably is a little more energized. He's also like, you can tell you do not have to read very far between the lines with him to see, like, he knows this could very well be his last ride, and he darn well better do the things that he needs to do, because if he does not do those things, well, his buyout is functionally zero. They could have bought him out for $8 million at the end of last year. Instead, they're paying him $4 million this year, and they can buy him out for $4 million at the end of this year. So functionally, he's coaching this year for free. They could have fired him at the end of last year. And he's got a bunch of incentives in there where, if he beats Ohio State and wins Big Ten, yada, yada, yada. But he's got to do it. They have a sign, he was asked about, they have a sign in their weight room that says, "What did you do today to beat Ohio State?" That's something that I remember in the Cooper era. John Cooper had, "What did you do today to beat Michigan?" in the Ohio State weight room. That's a little bit of a departure for him. That, they have not, Ohio State treats the rivalry with one level of seriousness and one level of focus, and Michigan has traditionally not done that. Like, that's not how Michigan, Michigan is, there's also Michigan State, and there's also Penn State, and there's also, it is not the singular focus like it is in Columbus. And I think that's changing this year. Now, is it too late? Maybe. I don't know if that overcomes the talent gap that's there, but it is interesting. I think that does kind of really show you he knows this is it. They darn well better, maybe if they're 9-3 and they play a competitive game against Ohio State, they don't lose by 29 like the last time they played up in Ann Arbor. Maybe that's enough to keep him around for another year or two. But you got to show some serious progress, and being 10-1 and then getting blown out by Ohio, losing by 30. If you're 10-1 and you lose by 35 to Ohio State, well, that might undo all the goodwill you had from the previous 11 games.
What exactly did you accomplish?
Right.
So, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and hit us up. We'll get to them. One other thing I like from Jim Harbaugh, talking about defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, who he got from his brother John in Baltimore. And John Harbaugh was talking him up to Jim Harbaugh, and Jim was like, well, thank you. Why would you give this to me if he's so great? Because Jim Harbaugh said that he was told he's eventually going to be the defensive coordinator of Baltimore, and here is John Harbaugh giving him this up and coming coach. And John told him, "Because I love you, you're my brother, and because I love Michigan football." And I just thought that was an interesting answer, to where it's like almost like a life preserver type of thing, where it's like, I could see you're in trouble. I'm gonna give you a little life preserver, throw that out for you, and see if we can't save you.
Well, and it's entirely possible he's back on the market in a year and he can go back to Baltimore at that point. So that is entirely within the realm of possibility. And then he said a year calling a defense, and it was interesting. Harbaugh did not really want to get into a lot of specifics on what kind of defense they're playing, and it's like, well, as our friend Marcus Hartman from the Daily News said, I bet it's going to be kind of like what the Ravens run, because they just brought in a guy from the Ravens. Do you think that might be like, because and that's not all that dissimilar from what Michigan has run in the past, but it's like, well, okay, we're back to the weird secrecy for no real reason, but okay, cool.
Yeah, I heard that Aiden Hutchinson could pretty much line up anywhere, but I bet it's going to be on the defensive line.
Could be. Aiden Hutchinson, surprise tight end? Who's to say?
Anything else from Harbaugh today that was interesting?
Those were, I think, the big things. He talked about Mike Hart and bringing back a lot of the Michigan guys and the importance of recruiting in Michigan. That was not out of the out of the norm in terms of coach speak and all that, but just a lot of, he was a little more under control, I think, than previous years. It was not. I spent an hour watching him, and I did not really come away with the like, what is wrong with this guy feeling that you sometimes get when you're listening to him. Like he's being asked a question and he's not dodging it in the way that coaches sometimes just will answer another question because they don't want to answer your question. It's just like, what are you talking about? Like, what?
Was it ever adversarial?
No, about the closest to adversarial it got was pretty lighthearted. Was Austin Ward asked him about the moment after the 2019 Michigan game where he said, "I'll answer your questions, not your insults," when he was asked about what's the, is it a talent gap, is it a coaching gap, like what's the execution, like what's the deal? And he looked at Austin for a second. He goes, "Did you ask that?" And he's like, "No, it wasn't me." That was about as adversary. And that was really kind of, I think it was a little lighthearted. Like, it was just, I don't know. I did kind of come away with the vibe that he's just like, this is it. He's gonna, you know, maybe you remember the Rutgers game last year where it was just, Rutgers is down 35-0 or whatever it was, close to halftime, and it was just like, well, we're gonna do some dumb crap and we're gonna see what happens. Like, it just sort of has this vibe of like, well, he knows it's this, it's do or die, as he said. It's do this or die trying. So they're going to throw some crap at the wall and see what sticks this year. That was kind of my, like, we got nothing to lose. We got nothing, whatever inspirational movie quote you want to give from an action movie, like we're all we've got or whatever. Like that was just kind of my takeaway. Was just kind of like he knows what it is. He's not fooling anyone. He knows everyone knows the score, and they're gonna, I mean, if you see 17 trick plays against Ohio State this year, throwbacks on kick, I mean, like all the crap that Rutgers did, like just you throw it all against the wall and save it all for that game. And because if you beat Ohio State, even if you're 7-5, if you're 7-5 and you beat Ohio State, that's
Successful.
better. That's better than 10-1 and losing by 4 touchdowns to Ohio State.
You say motivational quotes from a movie or whatever. I'm gonna throw out the George Costanza thing of just do the opposite, and whatever you normally do, just do the opposite, and maybe that's what he's doing right now, and that's going to lead to some success. So
yeah, and that is what they're doing, because they have not done the emphasis on Ohio State the way Ohio State has on Michigan, and then you go the other direction, and now they've got it on the wall in the weight room, and they're talking about it, and they're, he said they're gonna, Ohio State's at the top of the heap right now. They got to knock them off their perch. So they're not shying away from it. They know what they got to do.
So today there were 21 players here. I asked, about 18 of them how they felt about playoff expansion. Tom, how many of them do you think of those 18 are against playoff expansion?
Well, I know there was one that you mentioned, but I'm gonna say that the answer is 1 or 2.
0, because even the guy I mentioned was for it, just acknowledging that 16 is a lot. They were all for it. And again, we talked to, just to remind you, the teams we talked to: Nebraska, Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan, Maryland, Northwestern, and Penn State. So it shouldn't be a surprise that those programs and the players from those programs would like to see playoff expanded. I'm interested to see what the Buckeyes say tomorrow. But even Pat Fitzgerald, I tweeted out one of his quotes, like he's all for it. And he heard, he's like, I understand, or I laugh at, seeing somebody who wasn't for it, I'm assuming he's referring to Dabo in terms of that. And it's like, he's like, it's funny how the math works on that teams that always make it don't want to see more people in it. And so all of the players were for it. I even asked them, is 15 games too much to ask? And they were like, no. Mohammed Ibrahim, the Minnesota running back, said probably, maybe, but maybe if they were paid a little bit, then that would be okay. And then I think Sam Jarek, and I'm going to forget where he plays, but he's a med student, pre-med, Northwestern. Thank you.
Obviously.
Offensive lineman. And so he was like, yeah, that's a lot. He was the only one that was really like, 16 is probably too much. Maybe you'd have to remove a regular season game or two, something like that. But they were all enthusiastically for playoff expansion. And from the coaches I talked to here as well, again, these are the coaches that would, they're tired of seeing Ohio State in it type of thing. So of course they're going to be for it. But and they were all, they didn't think it was too much to ask. And I know that's one of the things that people say, oh, you can't ask the college kids. You had players here like saying, please ask me to do that. I would. And Brandon Joseph from Northwestern, the safety, he's like, I played high school ball in Texas. In Texas, you have 10 regular season games, and then if you win state championship, that's another 6. So they play 16 games. He's like, I played 16 games as a junior. I played 12 as a senior. And everybody else, several other players are saying, we all want to play in the NFL, where they play 17 games now. So this is just preparation for that. And there's never a bad reason to play more football because plenty of teams don't get an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and we were talking, I think, in a different context earlier today about you just take the week 0 week and just make that week 1, and then spread put another bye week in the middle of the season. You give people a little more time to recuperate and feel better. Removing a game from the schedule is the very easy answer. It is also an answer that costs them money, so it's not what's going to happen, but it's an easy answer. But there are ways around it, and if the players are okay with it, and the medical experts are not saying like this is a firm, hard line, like probably fine, because how many teams are really going to be playing 16 games? You have to play your 12 games, then you have to play in the conference championship game, then you have to presumably lose the conference championship game and be one of the lower 8 seeds, not be one of those top 4 seeds, be one of those lower 8 seeds, and then you have to win 3 games or win 2 games and get to that 3rd game. I mean, how often is that going to happen? Probably not that much. Ohio State in 2002 played 14 games.
BYU has played 15 just in the last few years without playoffs.
Yeah, I mean it is something that I think,
or Hawaii, one of the two.
Yeah, it's something that I think it sounds like a lot. There's probably a way to manage it if they want to.
Yeah, extra time I think is probably the easiest solution. I asked several of the coaches about name, image, and likeness in terms of what would have been their dream endorsement as a college athlete. I talked to PJ Fleck, Tom. I want to run this by you, see what you think. He said he worked at a place, and he went to Northern Illinois, DeKalb, Illinois, and he worked at a place called Fatty's. And he said Fatty's had good food, and that he...
Probably a lot of it, I'm assuming.
Yes, and many different types. And one of the types he mentioned is fried potato salad.
If you're watching on the live stream, you just saw me make my trying to process fried mayonnaise face. If you're not watching on the live stream, you can probably imagine the horror of trying to, you remember at the end of the movie Seven when what's in the box? What's it? That was me trying to processing fried mayonnaise. But go on.
Well, so then he goes on and talks more. I'm like, hold on a second. What is fried potato salad? And he's like, well, you get some deep fried potatoes and then some like the McDonald's special sauce or the Chick-fil-A special sauce type of stuff, and you drizzle it on there and whatever other fixings that he had. He said, the next time you're in DeKalb, you have to go to Fatty's and you have to get the deep fry, or not the deep fry, just a fried potato salad. And he said, tell them PJ Fleck sent you. And then he added, it probably won't get you anything, but so that's... If you're out there and you're in DeKalb, or is it DeKalb?
DeKalb.
I'm from Ohio. I call it DeKalb. So check that out. Fried potato salad. It's intriguing. Like, I wasn't sure if it was gonna be like crammed into a ball and then like breaded and then deep fried, that sort of thing, which also sounds interesting but dangerous.
Yeah.
But they do deep fried mayonnaise balls at state fairs.
Yeah, I don't do deep fried mayonnaise
well,
balls.
they.
Yeah, not
the collective.
Not we. Well, I can't speak for
No, I do not.
Okay.
No.
When it's food that even Tony is aghast at, you've really done something. Yes. You do get these weird, and I don't want to lump you in here, but you do get these, like, this is a chance to, like, if you want to ask players or coaches something a little offbeat, this is the day you get to do it. There was a woman walking around asking everyone about Joey Chestnut, the hot dog eating competition champion, who is apparently from Indianapolis. Today I learned, yes. So he is not in fact from Coney Island. I can't believe it.
But he has made it his home.
He has made it his home.
He owns it.
Indeed. So he is apparently from Indianapolis. So there was someone presumably from Indianapolis asking about Joey Chestnut, asked Jim Harbaugh about Joey Chestnut, and does he consider Joey Chestnut to be an athlete? And Harbaugh thought about it for a minute and said, yes, I think you're accomplishing something with your body, basically. And he was asked, what would you be able to dominate in competitive eating? And he said he didn't know if he'd be dominating in competitive eating, but corn on the cob. He just eats corn on the cob until corn on the cob is gone.
You said you were going to make me guess.
Oh, I did say that. Well,
corn on the cob?
What does Jim Harbaugh put on his corn on the cob?
It should just be butter and salt. Maybe a little pepper if you want, but...
Correct answer is butter and salt. He is not a pepper guy.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, so there you go.
I mean, we're all from the Midwest. We know how to eat corn on the cob. Jeez. So
I was waiting for you to say fried mayonnaise. That was what I was really hoping. No, sadly no. No fried mayonnaise for Jim Harbaugh.
They don't need to be fried, just hot.
Yeah.
Like a hot mayonnaise.
Yeah. Nothing says a nice summer day like some nice hot mayonnaise.
That's good stuff. Anything else today before we get to some questions? Anything else strike you? Oh, Sam Jarek. I overheard him say about Joey Chestnut. Said he's the world's greatest athlete.
That's interesting.
I mean, when you figure the feats that he does, which is so much. What is it? Him and Katie Ledecky, the two who are far superior to anybody else in their competitions.
I mean, I don't know who else. I've been a little out of the loop with the Olympics so far, but yeah, I can't. We can't be far from having competitive eating being in the Olympics, can we?
Not if America has anything
That's
to
got
say
to be.
about
That's got to be close. All right, we're going to hit a couple listener questions. If you guys want to ask us questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We will do our best to answer them. Butch says Ohio State needs to join the SEC yesterday. I'm calling Christina Johnson right now. I mean,
it's a lot of travel.
It's a lot of travel, and I think that they may be full. That may be the other question.
They don't have room for Ohio State.
Yeah, they might make room for Ohio State, but
no, you got to keep Vanderbilt to help the GPA.
Yeah,
when you bring the smart walk-ons in,
someone's got to do the work on the group project. That's what Vanderbilt's there for. So we got someone on the Buckeye Scoop account wants to know whose phone Ryan Day broke.
Did you hear about that?
I did not hear about that.
So there is a report somewhere about the student assistance fund that all schools used, and one of the things from Ohio State was $740 to replace a phone broken by the head coach, a student athlete's phone. Now, Tom, can you think back to any student athlete who did something with a phone that perhaps maybe they shouldn't have, by streaming an intense speech from Ryan Day to the nation?
I'm not going to return this question. I'm just going to fair catch it. We're going to move on. Darnell Parker says the Big Ten and the ACC should merge and cut the weak teams. Now, that's actually, it's interesting that could be how this maybe ultimately plays out. I mean, we have heard Nevada Buck has reported in the past that Virginia and North Carolina are a couple of the teams that are potentially being talked about as Big Ten expansion candidates. The issue you're going to run into there is with the ACC's grant of rights, which is a TV contract thing that basically means they're locked into this TV deal through 2035, I believe. Is it 2035 or 2036? Until then, if a team leaves, their TV rights, stay with the ACC. So the ACC continues to collect their money. They get $0. So that's going to be the issue that seems to be the issue that is would get in the way of that more than anything else.
But
I think.
Tom, Kevin Warren is a lawyer.
Jordan Kapler, question for Tom and Tony. Why? Jordan, you're going to have to be way, way, way more specific. Kirsten says A&M will block UT. Now that is interesting because let's do a little criminology here. The news about the Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC was broken by the Texas A&M reporter from the Houston Chronicle, I believe, and then Texas A&M athletic director Ross Bjork was not every athletic director was at the SEC Media Days, but Ross Bjork sure was. And Ross Bjork could not wait to get in front of television cameras and talk about Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, and did not seem to be in favor of it.
Was that right?
And when you think back to Rutgers and Maryland coming to the Big Ten, that was just kind of you heard about it, what? That can't be right. And then 10 minutes later, it was done. It was done. It was the contracts had been signed and done before anything leaked out. Now you have an opportunity for Oklahoma State, which already put out a nuclear statement about the idea of Oklahoma leaving them. Texas Tech, the Texas legislature, the Oklahoma legislature, all these different governing bodies get involved and kill the deal. So yes, the question there is right, that is entirely possible that A&M will be able to kill it. They are 100% likely. They are 100% the people who leaked it. The question is the SEC needs 4 votes to kill it. A&M and Missouri are hard no's. There are some other states, that South Carolina really does not want Clemson in the SEC. Florida really does not want Florida State in the SEC. Kentucky really does not want Louisville in the SEC. So can A&M and Mizzou kind of twist those arms a little bit and say, well, if you don't want your we'll vote for Clemson next time.
Or
can they twist some arms
you
and make that
vote
happen?
for us, and we'll vote for you.
Right.
Keep the borders up.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting. Jordan wants to know what our stance on sloganeering is.
I first of all, I love the word, and I like the fact that I learned it today, and that I mean, this wasn't the first time he's come up with it. So I don't know what if Tom though? What if that's his mantra? Like, I'm not into sloganeering, and that's what he says all the time. Then,
But then that's pretty meta. Yeah.
Isn't he then? But I do like the fact that that's something he's thought about and has come up with a word for it, and he's very I didn't ask him my silly question because I don't know how sometimes plus he's on the hot seat a little bit.
Yeah. Darnell says high school academics are not the same as college. I question if the athletes are studying and taking their own tests. I think that's in reference to the number of games. And I think the concern on the number of games is not the academic on the athletes.
Yeah,
that's where there's more of a concern there.
They have so much academic support in college that you play 40 games and stuff is going to get done.
What's fun on the chat is when we're scrolling back through stuff and I know exactly when people commented things. Rona V just has 4 people, 4 emojis making the I'm about trying not to throw up face. That's a deep fried potato salad right there.
Fried, not deep fried.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, fatties.
Travis wants to know, how do we get Kevin Warren removed from his position? Well, I don't think anything's happening imminently.
Seems like the presidents and chancellors are happy enough with him, or at least enough of them are.
Where goes one says contracts are made to be broken, and that's the thing. I mean, there is not an unbreakable contract, but that's it's a hurdle. It's not it's not a insurmountable hurdle, but it's a hurdle.
Well, like I say, the AAU thing isn't insurmountable, or for somebody to join the Big Ten. I think Nebraska has already proven they came in as an AAU member, but then lost that membership. But they're still in the Big Ten. So the Big Ten does have a member that isn't a member of the AAU. So I don't know that that's a hard and fast rule anymore. Certainly it's a preference, but Big Ten is almost all out of preferencing abilities.
Yeah. And at some point they got to get.
Although their preference is kind of weird sometimes. So.
Yeah, they've made some. I'm not here to kink shame, but your Rutgers thing is skeeving me out a little bit. Michael says, your thoughts on Ohio State developing their own advertising and marketing company to promote the players?
I don't think you can't do that, right?
I wonder if he's confusing it with the company they have or the organization they have to broker the deals or to
right, and they're
oversee the deals.
And that company works with a lot of schools.
The school can't facilitate the deals. That's something that some of the coaches actually directly talked about today. Was the school can't directly facilitate those deals. They've got to.
They can educate them.
They can they can educate them. They have to approve them in some states, but including Ohio. But the Ryan Day can't pick up the phone and call Nationwide Insurance and say, "Hey, give CJ Stroud $1 million."
That's too much power for one coach. And he doesn't have the time.
Sam wants to know, how many times did PJ Fleck say row the boat? I think I only heard it once during.
Yeah, he only says it at the end.
At the end, yeah.
So twice.
Yeah.
Once up there and one over there.
I'm always thrown by the fact that it's apparently Sky-U-Ma and not Ski-U-Ma, even though it's SKI.
Right.
Seems like SKI is a word that we have in English, but I've never understood that Minnesota cheer.
No, I haven't either.
I also haven't understood why they have reporters here who will. There was a reporter who asked Jim Harbaugh a question and prefaced it with "Go Blue," and then I asked Jim Harbaugh a question at the podium and said, as I said this morning, "Go Blue." It's like, oh, good. Well, we've made that clear, haven't we?
I wanted to reemphasize in case you missed me saying "Go Blue" and then you acknowledged me up there. Yes, I also want to ask another question and say "Go Blue."
2 or 3 years ago, might have been 3 years ago, because I believe we were upstairs at the Hilton in Chicago. There was a reporter, Mark D'Antonio, said "Go Green" at the end of his speech, and the reporter in the back yelled "Go White." I was like, that's not how this works at all. That's not how this works at all. Where goes one says, thoughts on the opener?
Minnesota seems excited for it because this is their first game with fans back, so they're all excited about that. I think it's, PJ Fleck, they can't get too excited. They're too focused on this just being Ohio State. And they're already, you can't start thinking about it right now. In terms of me, I can start thinking about it right now. I'm excited for it. I think the passing game, the Minnesota offense as a whole is going to give Ohio State's defense some issues where they're going to have to take it seriously. The running game is real. They might have the best running back in the Big Ten, the most veteran quarterback in the Big Ten, a good receiver in Chris Altman-Bell, a veteran offensive line. They have I think 7 or 8 offensive linemen who have started. They bring their 4 or 5 guys back. They got a lot of experience last year from guys missing games due to COVID and other guys having to step in. So that's one of the, I don't want to say benefits, but the side effects of last year, that they've got all kinds of experience returning. Fairly decent defense, they think. So I think we've said before, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a higher point differential between Ohio State and Oregon than Ohio State and Minnesota.
Yeah, that Minnesota game is, Ohio State should win. Ohio State's got better talent. But it doesn't seem like a game where if Ohio State's up by 17 points, they're necessarily really going to be pressing to get that to 31 or 38. And, that's not necessarily going to be easy to get it to that point. Like, Minnesota is actually a pretty decent team. I think they were picked 4th in the West, I believe. And so they're not incredible, but they're fine. And frankly, I would probably maybe put them ahead of Northwestern, because you mentioned Minnesota getting a lot of guys back. Northwestern is one of the few teams that's losing a bunch of people off of last year's team. So yeah, that's going to be a little more challenging than I think people maybe are expecting.
Illinois, 22 super seniors and 18 regular seniors is insane.
That
could win them a couple of games, and that may be the difference between 4 and 6 wins.
Yeah, it might be the difference between 2 and 4 wins. Yeah, Brett Bielema talked a little bit about how really praised Lovie Smith for he basically said I can't really address anything that happened before I got here, but Lovie really did a great job leaving the basically leaving the cupboard not empty, like it's not full, but it's not empty. I mean, first of all, when you're a new head coach going into a rebuilding thing and you're probably finishing 7th in your division, like that's not the way to manage expectations. That's not how to do it at all. Like, just hey, we've got a process. We like what we like what we've got, but it's gonna be a process. Like that was not messaging that I agreed with.
They're gonna have to try to bring those 18 seniors back next year as well, so that you're not replacing like 35 guys.
Yeah.
Ron Zook is back in the Big Ten.
He is.
As outside linebackers coach at Maryland and special teams coordinator Mike Loxley. I was over there when he was talking, and he's like, yeah, I convinced Ron Zook to give up the water skis for a while.
Yeah. That was one of those. Like he had apparently been an analyst for them for a year or two before this. It was one of those like, oh, hey, he's back. That's fun.
And Loxley was his offensive coordinator at Illinois.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, that's it's always fun when you have some of those old names. Like we really need Tim Brewster back in the league. That would really be a thing that I would be in favor of. I think he was at Florida State last I heard. He may be available at some point too.
He's a valuable recruiter, so teams aren't so eager to give up on him.
Razmataz says, who gets the money from a jersey sales? Do players get a cut? Now, I think that's going to depend on the state and how certain schools I think have gotten deals in place where you can presumably put the player's name on the back of the jersey.
Have you seen what Michigan is doing?
Michigan is giving players a cut of their jersey sales. It seems like that's something you could figure out. You're probably going to figure out, because I think Ohio State fans probably would like to buy a CJ Stroud jersey with Stroud on the back. I mean, you see the retired player jerseys, Hawk or Griffin or Spielman or whatever. I'm sure people would like to buy a jersey with the player name on the back. That seems pretty win-win, and then the players just get a cut of it. So
you'll have to buy them from certain places, though.
Yeah.
Like places that have agreed to this deal with whatever organization is going to take care of all of it. But yeah, the school will get a cut, the store will get a cut, the player will get a cut. I don't know how much from maybe, I don't know if it's a third, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and the other question is how much more a jersey's going to cost now. And considering how much jerseys cost already, I'm not sure anyone will even notice.
Well, the good thing is jerseys may go up, but jorts prices stay the same.
That's good. Except in Florida, where the players have endorsements for jorts. Jordan says, can I pick up the phone and call Nationwide Insurance and tell them to give Tony and Tom $1 million? Jordan, let me encourage you to try. I don't know if it'll work, but go ahead and give it a shot.
Yes. Because if there's one thing insurance companies love to do, it's hand out money.
Razzmatazz, leaving that one alone. Razzmatazz says playing Minnesota will be a lot like playing Wisconsin. They have a lot of big linemen. PJ will probably have a couple trick plays and use misdirection. Yeah, that sounds about right. Jordan says that has there been any discussion about allowing players to use OSU facilities for their endorsements or promotions?
There was something early on that they would have to get approval for that. Like, it's not off the table.
Yeah.
One of the other things that the coaches and players that I've talked to were like, people are making way too much out of this. And coaches were like, the reason people are making so much of this right now is because it's new, but it's going to settle down. Go back to Sam Jarrett again. Like, somebody asked him, hey, what have you done in terms of endorsements? He's like, I've been filling out applications to medical school, so I haven't done anything. And other players were like, I haven't done anything with it yet. And so, maybe this helps the 1% more than in terms of like big money, which is what we thought. But some of these coaches were like, it's much ado about not much right now, and it'll eventually, as we've been saying, like it'll settle, it'll slow down, it'll calm down, and like the market will find its level, the water will find its level.
Yeah, Nick Saban said that Bryce Young, his quarterback who has not yet started a game, hinted that he was close to 7 figures in endorsements. Tony, do you believe Nick Saban is telling you the truth? If you looked at Bryce Young's tax return in April, would it have close to $1 million on it?
I do not believe, and I do think it's interesting that he mentioned this to Texas high school coaches, where fruitful quarterback fields of Texas, and as I tweeted out, it's interesting that you would have these companies pay so much for his endorsement, and then hide the fact that he is endorsing them.
Yeah, well,
you've heard nothing.
You don't want that to get out.
Yeah, the only thing he has endorsed right now is Cash App.
Yeah, which
and he's not alone in that.
Yeah,
but they're not paying him, $470,000 or whatever.
Maybe. You don't know that.
I don't. Thank you, Tom.
Technically, you don't know that.
I don't know that. But when has that ever stopped me from saying something on a podcast?
If this show, if you've learned anything over 300 something episodes in this show, I think we're through everything. I think we've defeated. Yeah, we have defeated the listeners yet again.
Good. Let's go before somebody asks a question.
We're done. So yeah, we got Friday coming up, and Ryan Day, Thayer Munford, Jeremy Ruckert, and Zach Harrison here for Ohio State. But
we'll stream all of that, all 4 of those guys. Won't be able to stream the stuff at the front podium. You can watch that on Big Ten Network, but we'll get everybody else. We'll try to be near the speakers, I guess. Try to get that figured out for you. We'll get it taken care of. I forgot to introduce who we were at the start of the show because it's been so long since we've done this.
Oh.
So I believe I did. So that's Tom Orr. I'm Tony Gerdeman. This is Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.